And now let's jump into the top five contenders and the top five pretenders in the NFL. I have for the top five contenders, number one, Kansas City. And my reasoning for that is it's self explanatory. They're the defending champs. They have Patrick Mahomes. Whenever he's on the field, they are a threat to win it all. So that team is going to have to be beat. And after seeing it up close and personal this weekend, it's going to be very tough to do. So they're number one on my contenders list. Number two, I'm standing on it, the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota looks for real. They have an explosive offense and they have a strong defense. They look like the real deal. They showed it again last year. I think if Justin Jefferson can stay healthy, and it's a big ask and it's a big if, but if Sam Darnold can keep up this play, watch out. Number two on my contenders list right now, they look dangerous. Number three, the Buffalo Bills. Here they come. They are playing with a chip on their shoulder. I felt like they obviously heard the offseason talk. Everybody thought the Buffalo Bills were going to fall off of a cliff. They lost Diggs. They felt like their window had closed. And now they look like one of the best teams in the league, if not the best. The defense still looks strong. Looks like they've gotten better, really. And something to note, man, is it Stephon Diggs? It seems like these teams always seem to get better after Stephon Diggs leaves. I heard that he's not the best locker room guy. I heard that, speaking of wide receiver divas, I heard that he's one of those. And I just find it weird. The place of weakness coming into the season for Buffalo was their wide receiver core. Obviously a big pickup in the draft with Keon Coleman, but all of a sudden they just look unstoppable. Josh Allen playing great, not turning the ball over, scoring big. I mean, another team that's a true contender out here. Four, I'm going there. After we just talked about their struggles, I trust the Baltimore Ravens. That's my fourth spot. I do. Again, I thought that first win or first loss against Kansas City, primetime game, came down to the wire. They looked fine. I think Baltimore is going to get it together. Again, I think all of their issues that I saw with them are fixable. And they lost close games, just not able to close things out. We've seen them close games out before. And they have a great quarterback. They have a great system. I think they'll be just fine. So I have them on my number 4 for the contender list, even though they are 1 and 2 right now. And then wrapping it up, number 5, San Fran. The 49ers, this is just gut here because they lost a comeback game last week. They lost the week before that. So I think they're 1 and 2 now, but I just think they're going to get it together once they're fully healthy. I think that's the biggest thing here. Jawan Jennings looks to be their number one receiver right now. No Christian McCaffrey, no Debo, no Kittle. They have to get healthy. I do think they're good enough to stay afloat until these things happen, but I do think they may, take some losses here early, but once everyone is able to come back healthy, I think they make a furious run and get hot at the right time. So they have not fallen off of my contender list, but it's a little shaky there. And then honorable mention are the Detroit Lions. I've been shortchanging them for a while here with these lists, but I do think they're still a competitive team. My biggest thing, I think I mentioned this in the episode before too, is that it's a difference between being the hunter and being hunted. I think last year they were the hunters. Everyone realized that Detroit is a serious team. They can't be taken lightly. But now everybody knows it, and they're coming after them. So I'd like to see how Jared Goff deals with that and how the organization as a whole does with that just different dynamic of pressure there. They did get the win this week, so we'll see how their season goes, but definitely on that borderline of like I think they are a good team, contender as well. The more entertaining list, the pretenders. I have Philly as number one. I believe in Saquon. I don't know about anybody else. I, of course, believe in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but I I don't like how they are winning these games. You go back to the late Falcons loss. I don't like how they seem suspect in the passing game, and I just think their defense is suspect. They had a good showing, so we'll see if they pick it up because they should be a ton better than they actually are right now. But I just don't have a world of confidence in them, and it's starting to look like a repeat of last year. So we'll see how they play out. Number two, Dallas. Dallas Cowboys. They had a big week or big win in week one against the Browns. They looked like the real deal, shut down Cleveland, and now we see what Cleveland is. Looks like Deshaun Watson may not get back to that Houston Deshaun Watson anymore, and excuse me, they're just not a very good team right now. And so kind of look at it like, oh, that may have been a fluke win. And then New Orleans comes to town. And they put up 7,000 points on your defense. Place of pride for you all. Got Trayvon Diggs back. Obviously have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. A different team, but you got the same core as these past few years. So interesting to see the decline in their defense, and I just think they have to get that together. No more Dan Quinn, and they've definitely seen to decline since that point. And then of course Dak and CD, as I mentioned earlier, just not on the same page. So I have them as the pretenders now. I think it's pretty clear that they have big issues, but still threw them on that pretender list. Seattle Seahawks. I got them at number 3 as a pretender. I'm not all the way sold on them. They are a 3-win team, but the 3 wins aren't against great teams. They beat the Broncos, and they beat the Patriots in overtime by a field goal, and then they played the depleted Dolphins, or no QB Dolphins at least. And so I think they have a much tougher schedule here coming up. Got the Lions next week. 49ers come in. They play the Falcons here soon. So I think the competition will get a lot more stiff, and we'll see. But I think they may be, a team that's similar to last year, middle of the road, but not as good as they seem right now. And then number 4, pretenders. I have the Houston Texans, and it pains me to say it. My favorite player, CJ Stroud. They have a questionable offensive line, and who knows with their defense. They kind of snuck into the playoffs last year, and they were a playoff team like They were good enough to make the playoffs in that division. Hey, good enough to beat the Colts at the end of the year to get the playoff berth. But when they made the playoffs, they had to play the number one seed. They were no match for them, and I kind of see something like that. I think everyone is expecting them to step up here, as they obviously have Tank Dell, C.J. Stroud, rookie of the year, and adding Stephon Diggs, Nico out there, who's a beast. They have the weapons, but I mean, as we saw with seeing with the Falcons, you got to have an offensive line to be able to be effective. So I have them as a pretender. They are 2-1. I hope they prove me wrong, but we'll see. Number 5, New Orleans Saints. I have them as a pretender because, and this sounds crazy because I had them as one of the best teams just last week. But after seeing them play the Eagles, it made me question their other 2 wins now, because the Dallas win is what made us really say, like, oh, they're for real. Now we kind of see, oh, no, Dallas just doesn't have a good defense, or has a defense not playing very well right now. And then you go back to week 1, you beat up on the Carolina Panthers, who are a team to watch. To an extent. But that was something that just put things into perspective and made you say, are the Saints really explosive, or were they just going up against poor teams, poor defenses? I have them as a pretender. And part of the reason is because I'm a Falcons fan and I don't like the Saints. So, yeah, I have that. We will see. Falcons have the Saints next week. So that will be one to watch. Obviously, rival game there. But we'll see. My contenders and pretenders for the NFL there.